Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And this is the Ultimate Fighter Season 27, the Battle of the Undefeated, Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier, Episode 2 of Season 27 recap. Now, this was actually a pretty fun episode, not like a crazy episode, you know, where the craziest Ultimate Fighter episode you've ever seen, like where the coaches fight, you know, the episode where Cody Garbrandt lashed on TJ, did nothing like that, but still, all in all, another good episode. I'm enjoying this season. It's not a big drama show, but there's great fights, great talent on the thing, and also they're starting to get to the pranks between Cormier and Stipe. Stipe might have opened up a can of worms on this episode he might not have been ready for. Daniel Cormier had to say, yo, be careful, you know what happens when you play with fire. You get burnt. Now, with that being said, let's go to the beginning of the episode. Of course, we had Kyler Phillips versus Brad Katona on this. These are the guys that were going to be fighting this episode. Kyler Phillips was from Team Stipe. That's the guy you see with the red arrow above his head. Brad Katona was from Team Daniel Cormier, the guy with the red arrow above his head. Now, Kyler Phillips is the Matrix, and Brad Katona is SBG's Superman. He looks like a featherweight Rory McDonald, and he's also pretty high level guy. All of these guys are undefeated. So at the start of the episode, Stipe said, you know, at the firehouse they do a lot of pranks, so his team decided to spice it up a little bit by hanging posters of Stipe's face and also a pretty big poster of Stipe Miocic and one of his coach partners with their junk blurred out all through Daniel Cormier's locker room. Like every single picture in Cormier's locker room they covered with Stipe Miocic's face with, like, you know, the old fisticuffs mustache, you know what I'm saying? They gave him the old fireman's mustache or whatever you want to call it, and they had a bunch of those all over Team Cormier. And then there was one picture where they had Stipe Miocic and another guy's junk blurred out. And so Team DC walked in and, you know, they saw the jokes and stuff afterward, and Daniel Cormier was like, you be careful when you play with fire, because now I've got to top him. So Stipe Miocic, after his team walked in and saw all the pictures hung up, Daniel Cormier went in Miocic's locker room and like pulled his real dick out, put it in Stipe's face, like, let me show you what a real man looks like, motherfucker. You know, so he had to go in there and top his ass, and still, I don't think DC's done. I don't think that's all the only get back. DC is probably waiting for this moment. DC going into this, you probably would have thought would be the guy to start off the jokes, but no, Stipe opened up that can of worms, so we'll see where it goes from here. Now, they also talked a little bit about Stipe Miocic's fighter, Kyler Phillips. He's only 22 years old. He was 5-0. He's got very high level wrestling and jiu-jitsu, so he's a solid grappler, and he also got a TKO in under a minute on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. So Kyler Phillips, at only 22 years old, he didn't get the contract to fight in the UFC at Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, but he's got some legitimate experience and skills under his belt and some serious potential at only 22 years old. Thailand Clark is a guy that was on Team DC, and he wasn't fighting on this episode, but I'll show you who it is. It's this gentleman right here, this black dude right here, where my mouse is over. I'm circling right here. This guy, I didn't even actually know it. This dude, one of my best friends in real life, actually knows him. This guy trains out of Kansas, right? I'm based out of Kansas. And this guy, actually, my friend, he hasn't even had an amateur fight yet, but he trains MMA and shit like that. He's just starting. And he trains with this guy. And so he was like, yo, bro, my homie just made The Ultimate Fighter. Check it out. And that's actually this guy. And in this episode, that Thailand guy and Daniel Cormier, they almost got into it a little bit because DC's team, they were talking a little bit about how it looked like Thailand might have been training too hard, you know, TJ Dillashaw style, you know, overtraining a little bit, and they were having to tell him, like, slow down, you know, like, you ain't got to take it that hard. We're teammates in here. This isn't a real fight. And so DC had, you know, him got into it a little bit, and DC was like, bro, you can get out of here if you keep it up. Like, and dude was like, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to train and show what I can do. And DC's like, well, man, this is your career. I'm just trying to help, but you can leave if you really feel like that. And so it continues a little bit. He gets back to rolling. Thailand gets back to rolling with his opponent. And DC's like, all right, come here. And so DC gets on the mat with him. He's ready to like, all right, dude, you ain't just gonna keep overtraining with these dudes. So DC decides to roll with him a little bit, and dude ends up showing DC he's got some legitimate skills. Might have had DC locked in a little submission, not fully, but DC and him got to grappling, and he earned DC's respect through that grappling session. Daniel Cormier ended up with a smile on his face, and now Thailand's like, yo, me and DC are actually boys now. So at first DC thought he was going a little too hard in training, and DC was just trying to tell him, like, even in a fight, there's times where you're going to want to be able to slow down. You don't want to go 100% the entire fight. Even in a fight, there's times you want to slow down. So why are you going 100% in training? But afterward, DC and him ended up actually becoming pretty cool, which was dope. I thought Thailand might have fucked around and been getting kicked off the show in the beginning, and then him and DC, now they're boys, which is pretty dope. Now, Brad Katona, who actually is fighting on this card, is also Team DC. That's the guy with the arrow above his head. He trains out of SBG. He's from Winnipeg. Told a little bit about him coming into the Ultimate Fighter, but he moved to Dublin to train with SBG Ireland, where he loves it, and he lives with his girlfriend Katie, who's also a fighter. She's an atomweight fighter, fights at 105 pounds. He said he wanted to move to SBG not for Conor McGregor, but Conor McGregor put a big spotlight on John Kavanagh, and he said John Kavanagh proved with Conor McGregor he can make world champions, and so that's why he really wanted to train under SBG. Now in my head, whenever he said that, I was like, so does that mean Edmund can train world champions just because Ronda Rousey? Because other than Conor McGregor, you don't really hear about world champions coming out of Team SBG yet. I mean, Gunnar Nelson is a guy Conor McGregor trains with, sometimes, but he hasn't been a world champion. Artem Lobov, he's the GOAT, but definitely not a world champion yet. So it's just interesting, we'll see how that plays out if John Kavanagh is able to make another world champion, but he does have the spotlight on him, and he's got young undefeated fighters wanting to train for him, so I don't see why he can't get another world champion. You know what I'm saying? Conor McGregor brings a lot of spotlight to that gym. But either way, Brad Katona, he's a featherweight, and he looks like Rory McDonald. He had like the glasses on. He was a self-proclaimed nerd. Like him and his girlfriend were going to see like Star Wars or something or other. They talked about in that segment where it had him and his girlfriend. And it really came out later on when he was training, like the nerd in him. He had the glasses, kind of looked like Rory McDonald, a little like Superman, featherweight Rory McDonald, SBG, Superman, whatever you want to call him. And he also was talking about how he just loved MMA because he realized, like, when you throw a jab or a straight and the way you turned into it, he started getting to like some physics and shit, it sounded like. So he just started like nerding out a little bit, had a little nerdgasm over MMA, and I was like, you could tell he really loves the sport. So with that being said, now we switch over to his opponent for this episode, Kyler Phillips. He trains out of the MMA lab with Benson Henderson, Sean O'Malley, and some other high-level fighters. His weight class, he said he's got a lot of training partners around his weight class to train with. And also his girlfriend Emily, they talked a little bit about her. She's aspiring vet tech. They had like dogs and rabbits and crabs and other animals, although they didn't live together yet. But this dude's only 22 years old, training out of the MMA lab, pretty high level team, you know what I'm saying, some fun guys out of that camp. And also Kyler Phillips is a guy that had solid wrestling and jiu-jitsu coming in, and as I said already, a TKO finish on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, which is actually where Sean O'Malley got his contract, his teammate. So they showed a little bit of him training at the MMA lab, and so these really seemed like building into the fight. Two of the best guys on the show, possibly. I believe they were actually both like ranked 2 or picked 2nd. But yeah, these were 2 high-level guys. I mean, I could tell Brad Katona, he was a guy, out of SBG. He was a really solid athlete. I believe Daniel Cormier said he had a wrestling base coming into this. And this guy, you could tell, really loved the sport, had a really high fight IQ. DC talked about that. He said this guy was an engineer, so he's picking up things quick. And, he's really smart about the sport. And his opponent seemed like more of a fighter. He said, whenever other guys were partying and stuff in school and all of that, he was always in the gym. Whether he was wrestling or training jiu-jitsu, he was really always focused on being an athlete, and then he even had that TKO. So he seemed like a very well-rounded fighter himself, Kyler Phillips. But SBG Superman over here, Brad Katona, he also seemed legit as hell too. So this seemed like it was about to be a good fight. We went to the weigh-ins, and Team Stipe, he had his Kyler Phillips guy weigh in. 145 pounds. Team DC, Brad Katona, 145 pounds. And as I said, I was hyped for this fight going into it because I felt like both of these dudes, I didn't want either one of them to lose. From what I had learned about them, they both seemed like they had a lot of potential and talent. Undefeated. Kyler Phillips seemed like a legitimate fighter, you know, really about that life as far as fighting is concerned, trained with a high-level team, but he's only 22 years old. Katona, SBG, Superman, he seemed like he really wanted the W too, so I was hyped for this fight. And it was Superman versus the Matrix. Now, Superman is the guy on DC's team in the orange, and he is SBG Superman. That's my nickname for him. And then the Matrix is, well, they also called him Superman. I just call him SBG Superman, either way. But the Matrix is the dude in blue. That's his nickname. He said when he feels like he's in there, you know, and that was going to the point to where he's very well-rounded. He said he just feels like he's in the Matrix sometimes. So this was Superman versus the Matrix. Now, with that being said, Kyler Phillips is the Matrix. The Matrix, I'm going to use their nicknames. It'll be easier because you don't know really who they are. So the blue guy is Matrix. The orange guy is Superman. So the Matrix started off looking amazing, outstriking and outgrappling Superman. I mean, in the orange, Team DC's guy, in the beginning, Kyler Phillips was putting a beating on him, bro. Kyler Phillips was outstriking him. Kyler Phillips took him down, it looked like in the beginning, and I was like, oh snaps, the Matrix is about to walk away with this fight. But lo and behold, Superman took over even in that first round. Katona mounted a little bit of a comeback with a couple powerful leg kicks and 2 big hooks that got Phillips respect. He started pressing forward, controlling the octagon. Katona looked like he may have started to figure Phillips out, you know, who was winning the beginning of the round. He controlled the entire second half of the round, and he even secured a takedown with about a minute to go. Finished the round on top, so I had round 1 for SBG Superman. He finished the round. I thought it was a 10-9. He lost the first minute of the round, but other than that, I thought he won the last 4 minutes, so he won the entire round in my opinion. So I had it going for Team DC for round 1. Next, we had round 2. Superman continued the forward pressure. He had a couple of kicks to the body, to the liver actually, but he scored a nice takedown whenever Phillips might have had him hurt. Phillips was able to get back up pretty quick and landed another nice shot to Superman's liver before Superman shot in for another takedown. Pressed Phillips against the fence. Both fighters looked a little tired with about 60 seconds to go in the round, but the round could have went either way at the end. They both started to mount a little bit of offense with 60 seconds to go, a couple strikes, even though they were a little tired. The round ended, so that was the end of round 2, and in the Ultimate Fighter, there's only 2 rounds, but if it's a draw, it goes to a 3rd round. So, Herb Dean did pretty quickly say there's not going to be a 3rd round, which led me to believe Superman was going to win because I had him winning the 1st round. And that ended up happening. Brad Katona won the fight. So, that's 2-0 for Team DC if you're keeping score. If I'm not mistaken, he won the first fight from episode 1 as well. And Kyler Phillips, he lost the fight. But he's only 22 years old, still has a lot of potential. At only 22, he's a very well-rounded fighter. Needs a little more time to round out his game, you know, maybe make some things automatic like checking leg kicks. That's one thing that Team Stipe was saying, or Team DC was taking advantage of. He was saying, you know, he wasn't checking his leg kicks. But he's only 22 years old. He's already done some pretty dope things, undefeated as a pro. So at only 22, I think this guy's still got a really bright future in MMA. I think we'll definitely see the Matrix in the UFC in the future. He's only 22 years old, training out of the MMA lab. He's well-rounded. He just needs to work on a little bit of things, and he'll be in the UFC. I'm not worried about that at all. So even though he lost this fight, I think we will be seeing from him again for sure. So with that being said, they just talked a little bit about the next fight that's going to be coming up. It's going to be Team DC's Lewis, which is, I believe, the violent Bob Ross you see behind Daniel Cormier. Looks like the albino Bob Ross with like the red afro. He's going to be fighting Jose from Team Stipe. So this, in this fight, Team DC is pretty confident, but Stipe said that his guy has all the tools he needs to shock the world. So with that being said, this was episode 2 of season 27 of The Ultimate Fighter. This was the recap. Thanks for checking it out. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I know this was a little late. I actually like to watch them the day of, but I've been pretty busy this week with work and stuff. So thanks for checking this out. Episode 2, season 27. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.